Just a quick heads up, guys. I just recently started posting on my personal channel, so if you do like my content and would like to see more of my crazy antics, then feel free to follow me on my personal channel, Wiggy the Heroic. Either way, let's get to this video. So, guys, have you ever wanted to play an immersive, open-world, old-school MMORPG with a semi-beautiful scenery? Then you've clicked on the right video, because Champions of Regnum is just that. Just don't investigate the character models too thoroughly or closely. Oh look, there's a sunset. Oh, an airship. Just don't pan to the characters and you'll be fine. Beautiful trees, grass, monsters. Okay, don't look at the monsters either. Okay, so maybe the characters are a little under-detailed, especially when looking at the scenery and then looking back at the characters. I mean, if you're into looking at murky diamond-esque bodies and character faces that make the default and unmodded The Elder Scrolls Morrowind look amazing in 2019, then yeah, you like the characters in this game. Okay, maybe that is a bit of an exaggeration on the character models, but you know, you get my point. Talking about points, my character's body with this lighting is probably an undiscovered polygon shape ready to be named. What's a shape with 72 sides? Food for thought. Anyway, I'm getting a little distracted here. Let's go back to Champions of Regnum. Now, as I did mention prior, it is an immersive open-world old-school MMORPG with 3 very whole factions to choose between. The first of the factions being, of course, the Citrus faction, comprised of elves, short halflings, and this monstrosity upon nature and all the inhabitants that live on planet Earth. Oh, and humans. There's also humans here. Besides this faction, we've also got the Alceus, comprised of mostly humans, so we can call it the generic human faction. We've got normal humans, short humans like dwarves, and the completely naturally occurring wild furries. Then lastly, we've got the emo rebels, the Ignis, which are comprised of tan people and tan elves. Or at least that is what I believe happens to an elf when they go out into the sun. It just fries their delicate, silky, smooth skin, and they turn into a good, well-done charcoaled steak. Moving on, each faction has their own starting area on the world. For the faction that I chose to play with Eve, being the Citrus, we started off at a pretty little island, away from everything but goblins and ogres. You know, the normal things that hunt elves in certain literature that shall remain unnamed. Then on to the combat and the general feel of Champions of Regnum. Having played it before and not really experiencing it to the fullest, or really even remembering much of what we did back then, as we did try out the Ignis faction, I pretty much went into this game with fresh eyes. And with the first glance, you can tell that this game is built for immersion. And it is really slow moving and slow paced, like real life. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're not interested in just being the max level instantly. Instead, you just want to actually enjoy your experience while leveling and exploring, which this game seems to encourage. And the feeling of immersion definitely comes from the fact that most names, icons, and any other form of important information regarding what's around you is hidden unless hovered over, which definitely gives you that feeling that you're living in that world, as opposed to just roaming around and everyone has names. That being said, I would like to point out that the controls in the combat were somewhat on the strange side. Moving around being one of the main issues, as it was tricky at times to use, as it uses both a WASD movement system and a point-to-click move system. Then there's the combat. In my personal opinion, it was clunky and very slow. It was actually quite difficult to begin fighting against a monster, especially if you are a melee character. Going from what Eve has told me whilst playing his melee character, I can assure you it is much more clunkier and harder to use than it would actually seem. Moving past the clunky controls and the clunky combat, Champions of Regnum, despite being an old game, has a lot of new players spawning in quite frequently, which was surprising for me to see, especially since I've been playing a lot of older MMORPGs recently, and a lot of them are dead or dying. To see new players spawning in these beginner zones when there is 3 factions to choose between, with the Ignis faction having an XP boost, and still finding players spawning here, it was great to see. I love seeing MMORPGs still having a good population, even if it's just a handful of people roaming around. I mean, I even managed to find a player and danced in joy when finding them. Of course, we were in the process of ending our unending, unyielding suffering that this game has brought upon us, but that is besides the point. All in all, guys, in my personal opinion, Champions of Regnum is by no means a bad MMORPG. I've played much worse, and I'm telling you, much worse. But for me personally, I found it to be so very slow and not that enjoyable. The scenery is good, the character models are the combat is clunky, the moving around is clunky, the world seems huge, the skill and questing system seems pretty decent, and there's actual players playing this game. But it just isn't my kind of game. That being said, I could see a lot of you guys finding this to be an enjoyable game to sink your time into. So guys, if you do end up playing Champions of Regnum, I would have to give you one piece of important advice. Do not go into the water. It doesn't end well. Your character lacks the ability to not only swim in this game, but the world itself doesn't understand water physics. And here at MMOBite, we appreciate physics of all kinds, mainly jiggly physics. Okay, maybe not MMOBite as a whole, but maybe it's just a personal preference and a personal opinion. But these things are important, damn it, and I will not stand for you desecrating physics. So with all of that being said and done, play Champions of Regnum at your own risk, guys. You have been warned. But with that out of the way, good day, night, or afternoon, wherever it is where you are, and I will be seeing you guys next time.